Mr. Minister, you implicitly acknowledged that sitting members of Parliament other than Michael Chong have been left in the dark. We know that at least 2 other members of Parliament are in the process or have been recently briefed that they have been a target of the Beijing regime. Why is it that only now, after it was reported in the Globe and Mail that Michael Chong had been kept in the dark, that steps now are being undertaken to brief members of Parliament? Why has it taken this Prime Minister so long to realize that MPs should be briefed when they're the target of Beijing and other hostile foreign states? Isn't it because the Prime Minister did nothing, covered it up, and now is in damage control mode?
Well, I don't think it'll surprise you, Madam Chair, that I don't share Mr. Cooper's pessimism and those highly inappropriate words at the end of his question. I don't associate myself with those at all. I would think the Prime Minister acts in the opposite sense of those words. But, Madam Chair, we have said that there has been, and my colleague, the Minister of Public Safety, of course, would have the lead responsibility for this, but he and I are working together in this space in a number of ways. The information sharing around these issues needed to be strengthened. That is what the Prime Minister has said publicly. That's exactly what the Public Safety Minister is implementing now. If these other colleagues are being contacted and asked to be available for briefings by the appropriate officials of CSIS, it's precisely because we want to strengthen their resiliency. And Mr. Cooper certainly wouldn't say that because we perhaps waited some time, we shouldn't do it now.
Madam Chair, Minister, through you, Madam Chair, what is inappropriate is that we have a sitting member of Parliament who was kept in the dark for 3 years and learned about it in the Globe and Mail. That's what's inappropriate. What's also inappropriate is that under this Prime Minister's watch, only now are members of Parliament being informed. That's inappropriate. It's unacceptable. And what's further inappropriate, Minister, through you, Madam Chair, is that on May 3rd, when the Prime Minister was scrummed, the Prime Minister misled Canadians. He said, in reference to...
Point of order.
Madam Chair, understanding Order 18, it is inappropriate to make reference impeding someone's the integrity of a member, sitting member of Parliament. So I ask the member opposite to withdraw that statement.
I believe that I said misled, not deliberately misled. And I'll put the words of the Prime Minister out into the record, in which he stated, quote, CSIS made the determination that it wasn't something that needed to be raised to a higher level because it wasn't a significant enough concern. Those were the Prime Minister's words. He made that categorical statement, except for the fact that that was simply not true. CSIS had alerted the PCO. They had shared that information with relevant departments. It's not as if the Prime Minister said he didn't know, it's the first he learned of it. He very specifically said they made a determination not to raise it to a higher level. Why would he mislead Canadians on something as serious as that?
Well, Madam Chair, the Prime Minister would obviously never want to mislead Canadians on something as important as that. He subsequently said that he learned of those incidents or those allegations surrounding, and this is where I agree with Mr. Cooper, the unacceptable circumstances involving Mr. Chong. He learned about those when they became public. Again, it's a he said, she said scenario where I'm going to some extent by comments I've seen in the public space. I would draw Mr. Cooper's attention to the former National Security Advisor, Vincent Rigby, who was in that job at many of those critical months, who said he himself had not seen what was the advice that had been sent to Privy Council. So I think parsing who saw what piece of information when is interesting, and it makes a great episode of Matlock.
Minister,
but Madam Chair, I would think what's important is for the government to strengthen...
So I'm going to pause real quick, because when both of us are speaking, it's tough when both of you are speaking, because when I speak, nobody else would be speaking. I am going to just give the last 10 seconds to Mr. Cooper because it's the easiest way.
Madam Speaker, the Prime Minister misled Canadians. He made a very specific statement that proved not to be true. It's part of a continued pattern, and it's all the more disturbing that the Prime Minister claims that he was kept in the dark. This from a Prime Minister who is supposedly briefed on national security matters, reads
Thank you.
everything, and nothing is
I am
held
going to
carefully back from him.
Continue.